I can completely understand how Claire Obscure Expedition 33 paints its story, right? That it's not light versus dark, that it's not light trumps dark or dark trumps light, but rather it's a huge morality discussion, and then it's also, yes, light and dark joining together and coexisting in the same space, and not necessarily one or over the other. Those are all themes that I can understand of the story, but that doesn't mean that I still can't have my personal gripe, right, with Maelle's ending. We are going to talk about the endings here because I can completely and utterly understand the nuance in her ending. And yes, I understand that every single time that you press "We continue" after you die in Clair Obscure Expedition 33, that you are essentially saying, I want to be repainted and I want to come back to the canvas because my story isn't over yet. And the game tilts you towards Maelle's ending because every single time you die, yes, you are repainted. Every single time that someone dies in the game, you are meant to feel the hit. It is meant to be a very personal hit for you. Every single decision in the game is kind of trying to point you towards justifying why Maelle wants to keep painting. And you are faced with the moral question not necessarily as Maelle versus Verso, but as you, the player. Do you want to keep painting? Do you want to keep being in this world and exploring and seeing what else is out there? But I still have a problem with Maelle's ending because you are trying to juxtapose the idea of not getting over grief, of just refusing to move on. I am someone, I have had to get over grief on a modicum of different times. And yes, even when it comes to those who were extremely, extremely close to me. But at the end of the day, I had to pick myself up and I had to learn how to get over the trauma. I had to get over it. I had to move on. Life kept spinning and I was just wallowing in despair. I don't believe that Verso is someone who is necessarily selfish. Both Maelle and Verso have different forms that appear through the game in different stages of their life. I want to focus on the little boy for a second. And I will also want to focus on Manoir, right? The little boy, Verso approaches him and he asks him, do you want to keep painting? The little boy says no. The little boy is a version of Verso. And Manoir, when faced with the entire juxtaposition of the whole game, he says that the paintings are fake, right? He's like, everything in this world is fake. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. However, the fact that Maelle wants to keep this world, keep all of these people functioning who don't even fully want to be there, that's not necessarily something I can get along with, because you're keeping people around that don't want to be there. And when you have her ending, yes, you are faced with Verso begrudgingly getting on the piano, and then you see Maelle's face kind of start to like suffocate a little bit in its own paint, right? I just don't see that option as incredibly valid. And I think that's my huge argument here. It's just the validity. Why are we raising that to a standard that is valid? Because at the end, I understand the theme that yes, it's light and dark mended together, but to still have an ending that says directly it is okay to not move on. It is okay to have people as puppets. It is okay to make yourself a god and essentially rule over everybody in a way, and not allow people to just live their lives and then move on. We see this in Shin Megami Tensei games all the time. Themes of grief, themes of moving on. One of the most popular Persona 5 Royal, Maruki Takuto, who is someone who ends up being, spoiler, a big bad villain by the end of the third semester, because he wants to live in a reality, and he is a literal god of the space where he does bring people back from the dead, and where he brainwashes everybody into believing that his reality is the best reality. Or if we want to jump to anime, Infinite Tsukiyomi, a world with no pain, brought on by Madara, firmly believing that the entire world should just live in a dream. The dream is synonymous with the canvas, because the canvas is just a person writing their own will onto a paper, and then essentially that canvas has no choice but to conform to the painter. They can't dare raise a finger against the painter, which is why I feel like Versos' character is so important, because he is not an adversary, he is someone who simply wants to see Maelle move on, and so if you choose him, then you get to see her move on. You get to see her face herself and understand that she has got to move on. And again, Verso is essentially like another form of the original memoir, who saved his sister, who sacrificed himself to save his sister. So it also is a tragic poetic way of repeating history, of allowing history to come back into the fold, and he saves her. And I don't even think he's being selfish here, because it's an act of selfishness to save her, but also it's an act of selfishness of saying it's okay for the painting to stop. It's okay for the painting to stop. And no, none of these endings are happy. None of these endings are good. It's all traumatic. And that's something I would never argue against. But one is definitely more morally valid than the other. That's it.